The CIA, the world's most powerful espionage agency, was founded with Hollywood stars like John Wayne and Marlene Dietrich, a bunch of East Coast socialites, bank robbers, mobsters, and ideas about goat dung bombs, Japanese officers pooping their pants, and making Hitler transgender. This was the OSS, the Office for Strategic Services, run by the eccentric World War I hero Wild Bill Donovan. Hello, darlings. This is Spies and Ties, a sub-series of World War II in real time, and I'm Astrid Deinhard. By 1940, all the countries at war have advanced spy organizations because they're at war, right? But the US is not, and we're already behind in the intelligence game before the war. Any intelligence was not provided by a spy organization, but the FBI or the Army's G sections and other disconnected organizations, okay? There was a US spy agency from 1919 to 29 called MI8. But then Secretary of State Henry Stimson shut it down, saying that gentlemen don't reach each other's mail. So, the US needs to catch up. They glance over to the British, who, as we have seen, have some spectacular spying operations in the Special Operations Executive, the SOE, also known as the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. To be like them, the Americans now also need someone who isn't a gentleman. So, who is this? He is William Donovan, or Wild Bill. Here he is, a colorful character, to say the least. He led one of the craziest attacks on the Germans in the Argonne in 1918 against orders, but succeeded and won a Medal of Honor for it. Then he went back to being a lawyer, but Wild Bill wants adventure. So, in 1938, he goes to Africa to observe the Italian-Ethiopian War and goes on to Germany in 1939 to observe the continent deteriorating into war. When that war begins, having seen what the Brits are doing with the MI6, he starts dreaming of the same for America. On June the 10th, in 1941, Wild Bill sends a memo to President Roosevelt pushing for a Central Intelligence Agency. This worries FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, famously wanting to be the spider in the web of all things covered in the US. And the Army and Navy hate it too, as they don't want a new agency to intrude on their territory. In more paranoia, Under-Secretary of State Adolf Berle thinks that this is a British attempt to infiltrate US foreign policies. Politics is so much fun, but maybe that's not so paranoid after all. The British do get involved. Prime Minister Winston Churchil sends the Director of Naval Intelligence, Rear Admiral John Henry Godfrey, here he is, to Washington to put pressure on Roosevelt to make spies. Assisting him is one of his officers. Hold your shots. It's Ian Fleming. Yes, that's Ian Fleming. And you know what? Godfrey is the guy that Fleming will one day base M on. Ha! Anyway, during the month of June, Fleming and Godfrey shuttle back and forth between Wild Bill's home and the White House, briefing him and the president on all the wonderful and nutty spy stuff the British are up to and lobbying for Wild Bill to get the job. So, on July 11th, 1941, Roosevelt makes Wild Bill Donovan the Coordinator of Information, COI. He reports directly to the president and gets a lot of freedom to do, well, pretty much whatever he wants. he sets up the Foreign Information Service to spread US propaganda by radio and pamphlet, an foreign intelligence unit to interview immigrants and learn about foreign customs, a secret intelligence department to set up spy networks, a research and analysis branch to write up reports, a visual representation branch to make those reports short and understandable even for the very busy president. In the Secret Operations Department, they recruit agents for sabotage and guerrilla operations. From a secret office in London, they cooperate with the SOE, and the first agents start to get training from them. The shift from research and analysis to actual operations gives birth to a new organization which replaces the COI. Still headed by Wild Bill, but now reporting to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, on June the 13th, 42, the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS, is born. And this is when things go really, really nuts. Wild Bill has some really wild ideas about who makes a good spy. Obviously, he needs smart, intelligent, and daring people with contacts, who speak multiple languages, who can more unsuspiciously in different walks of life. One circle he thinks in full of that is the crème de la crème of New York City. The OSS payroll is soon bristling with Mellons, Duponts, Morgans, and Vanderbilts. Then he turns to the Ivy League schools, law firms and big corporations, renowned journalists, linguists, theologians, historians, and anthropologists. In difference to the SOE, these are not fully secretive folks, but people in the midst of society, so much so that the OSS recruiting effort become the news. Journalist Drew Person jokingly refers to the OSS in his columns as "oh so social." But Wild Bill can do better than just second-rate socialites and intellectuals. Hollywood. He will eventually work with the truly famous, like Marlene Dietrich, John Steinbeck, John Wayne, and John Ford for intelligence gathering, propaganda, and disinformation. Even dead celebrities like Leo Tolstoy get in. His grandson, Ilya Tolstoy, soon becomes an actual OSS agent. He will go on a rather strange mission to Tibet to meet up with the then 7-year-old Dalai Lama to convey a message from the president. Donovan reportedly once said, "I'd put Stalin on the OSS payroll if I thought it would help defeat Hitler." Yes, that's my man. And speaking of gangsters, the OSS soon employs actual convicted criminals like burglars, mafia hitmen, communist veterans of the Spanish Civil War, to not mention professional wrestlers and bartenders. I have no idea why. Add to all of this glitz and glamour Wild Bill's infamous management style based on, well, chaos. The OSS will one day be described by some historians as one of the most poorly run agencies in US history. Allegedly, a running joke among employees is that one line from Macbeth summarizes the organization perfectly. Confusion now has made his masterpiece. All the crazy is reflected in the nickname the OSS soon gets, St. Elizabeth's, which is a psych ward in Washington. But the truly insane stuff happens in the OSS laboratories. Now, sit tight. In his own words, Wild Bill wants his very own Moriarty, as in Sherlock Holmes, inventive arch nemesis in Conan Doyle's novels. Someone who can deliver every subtle device and every underhanded trick to use against the Germans and the Japanese. And here he is, Dr. Stanley Platt Lovell. 52 years old, corporate executive and self-made man. He describes himself as a saucepan chemist, but is in fact a respected scientist with 70 patents to his name. He has been working with the NDRC, the National Defense Research Committee, which has already created new gadget-like weapons. But Donovan wants someone for himself. So Lovell becomes Donovan's Moriarty, which is a weird analogy if you think about it, because who would then be Sherlock? Hitler? Anyway, Lovell will join the OSS as the head of a new section, the Research and Development Department. And his contribution will be inventions that range from the Inspector James Bond spy stuff to outrageous that even make Austin Powers look like a serious agent. For example, there is the Beano, a baseball-like grenade with a little butterfly-shaped contraption on it. When you throw it like you would a baseball, the butterfly catches wind and arms the grenade. It explodes on impact. This device is so cleverly disguised that it will at one point make an actual OSS instructor forget himself as he starts lobbing the ball, as one does with a baseball while pacing back and forth instructing his trainees. You can probably figure out what happens next. Dead instructor, true story. There is, for example, the explosive candle. Figure this. A nice lady or cleaner replaces a regular half-burnt-up candle in a German officer's lounge or room with this one. He burns it, and within a few minutes, a big explosion will go off. Bye-bye, Nazi officer. Guns are hidden in everything. Pens, pipes, and umbrellas, which could blast away the kidney of the person on the receiving end with a simple bang. Lovell and his team invent Aunt Jemima, a flour-like substance which can be used to bake biscuits that you can even nibble on without exploding your face, but blows up when it comes into contact with fire. So far, the imaginable. Other inventions are based on feces. Yes, poop. They range from horrible ideas from biological warfare to the downright silly. On the terrible end, Lovell finds out there are more goats than people in Morocco, apparently, and plans to drop tons and tons of pathogen-laced synthetic goat dung over North Africa in the hope of attracting flies and spreading diseases to Rommel's forces. These plans are thankfully never made real. On the cartoonish end of things, Lovell mixes up a perfume which duplicates the revolting odor of a very loose bowel movement. It will allegedly be flown to China, where kids are to squirt the substance on the trousers of Japanese officers. Lovell calls it, who? Me? From crazy gadgets, they go to crazy ideas, like dropping pornography on Hitler's headquarters in an attempt to addict the Führer, or infiltrate a planned meeting between Hitler and Mussolini and pour some caustic liquid into a flower vase. With a delay, the liquid would evaporate and turn into mustard gas, blinding the two dictators. Lovell suggests that Wild Bill should then have the Pope say the following: "My children, God, in his infinite wisdom, has stricken your leaders blind. His sixth commandment is, 'Thou shalt not kill.' This blindness of your leaders is a warning that you should lay down your arms and return to the ways of peace. Amen. This would then convince the pious Germans and Italians to lay down their arms. Last but not least, Lovell is convinced that Hitler transcends the male-female gender line. Feeding him feminine hormones by injecting it into his vegetables would make him grow breasts, lose his mustache, and change his voice into a high-pitched feminine soprano. Lovell will recollect that one of Hitler's gardeners was even bribed to do it, but didn't follow through. Or he did, and it didn't work. Or did it? But these are all the crazy plans in the early days in our timeline in 1942. Despite the insane stuff they do and don't do, the OSS will be a highly effective weapon in their US war arsenal. Starting with Operation Torch in November this year, they will work in concert with the SOE to set the world ablaze, performing sabotage, infiltration, and espionage. And while the path from OSS to CIA will be bumpy and in no way a foregone conclusion, to this day, the might of Wild Bill's crazy spies is still holding the world in his invisible hands. We will certainly get back to the OSS and the SOE here. You can follow their crazy beginnings in my episode where I change clothes 5 times. Yes, I do. Check for yourself. Make sure to join our not-so-secret organization, the Time Goes Army, at patreon.com or timegoes.tv to make sure we can build a global power of fun history. I will see you next time, darlings.